Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 228 of the podcast. Are you joining us out live on Facebook or YouTube? Today's Wednesday, February 17th. I hope everybody had a very romantic and enjoyable Valentine's Day this Sunday. I know I had a good time with my two Valentines. Of course, my lovely wife and my spunky little daughter. So I was considering like just skipping this week and not even doing an episode because I went away for the weekend, and then Jeff was available last night, but I fell asleep at 8 p.m. But so I was considering like, oh, maybe we just won't do an episode this week, but I had to talk about Kamaru Usman's performance from Saturday night. I couldn't go another week without talking about it. I was just so impressed by him. Before we get into any of that, let me introduce all the way from frosty New Jersey, just getting hammered with snow like the rest of the country, except for Florida, Jeff, the animal Wilson. Jeff, you keeping warm up there, my friend?
Yeah, Bill, today was actually like 70. It wasn't too cold. Like, I was good with just a hoodie outside. But Bill, the snow from the first week of February, if you remember, I told you we had those 2 snow days, has not finished melting, and we're about to get annihilated with like 8 more inches tomorrow, supposedly. I don't know how accurate that is, but I am praying that doesn't happen, because I'm good without snow for like the calendar year. I think I'm good.
That sounds like the title of an adult film. Annihilated with 8 more inches.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that one.
Oh man, Bill. This snow is about to do to northern New Jersey what Kamaru Usman did, and what Tom Brady did to their haters. Because we haven't spoken since the Super Bowl, Bill. Before we get into it, I just want to talk about Tom Brady's greatness for a sec. Because on this show, Bill, I said that the Tampa Bay defense was going to be a factor, and I feel like as well as Tom Brady did, he threw for 3 touchdowns. That's awesome, but it felt to me, Bill, like the defense of Tampa Bay won that game. Listen, the Kansas City Chiefs, it's unheard of to keep them at a single-digit score, and they didn't even score a touchdown. So I think that defense is on a whole nother level. For some reason, I think only like one of them made it to the Pro Bowl. I don't know why. I think you could have given the MVP trophy to the whole defense of Tampa Bay. And Bill, it must have been a pretty exciting time last week. You got to watch Tom Brady throw one of his Lombardi trophies. If it had fallen into that river, it would have been okay. He's got 6 more, so it's all good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that river is only like 6 feet deep. Like they were on the news. Some news channel had reported like if the Lombardi trophy had fallen in, it would have sunk 80 feet deep. And somebody who lives in Tampa was like, "Does anybody know where the 80-foot hole is in the Hillsborough River?" So yeah, that river is definitely not 80 feet deep. It's quite shallow. I'm pretty sure they would have had an easy time finding it, or they would have just made another one. It's not like what is it, the Stanley Cup, where there's only one, and they pass it on to like the winning team only holds it for 1 year, and then they have to give it to the next team that wins it.
Oh, I don't know. I don't watch hockey, but Bill, Tampa Bay also won that Stanley Cup. So if there is only one,
they have it.
Yeah, you guys have it.
Yeah.
Good year for Tampa.
It would have been a bigger deal if Tom Brady tried to throw that in the river.
Nah, I think he would have tried to drink alcohol out of it.
Yeah. Well, not too much alcohol, because we saw he can't hold his booze very well. He had to be carried off the boat after almost throwing that Lombardi trophy in the river. I thought that was hilarious. It's nice to see the guy, like, I guess the guy is just so disciplined. Like, I think he eats a raw vegan diet and does all kinds of crazy calisthenic workouts in the Bahamas and shit, and doesn't touch alcohol. But it's nice to see him be able to let loose. The guy didn't even break a sweat in that Super Bowl, though. I feel like at the end of the game, he still looked like immaculate.
I think that's just his hair, man.
Yeah, like, does he not sweat?
Bill, the way that his offensive line was covering him, I mean, I don't think he was sweating that much. I mean, he got hit once, and then that was it. You know, he was able to throw, pass the ball, let somebody else run it. Which, by the way, Leonard Fournette I thought was awesome. He's become like my new favorite player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the guy's Brady's 7 years older than me. I would have rolled my ankle just jogging onto the field for the game at my age. Like, it's impressive that this guy is still winning Super Bowls. I saw, I don't follow football much anymore, but I saw that guy Max Kellerman from ESPN, and they're just roasting him because they were showing him videos from like years ago where he's like, "Oh, this is the last season for Brady. He's done. His arm is gone." And then at the bottom it says like, "Tom Brady won 3 Super Bowls and 2 MVPs since this video was made." They just roasted that guy.
Oh yeah, dude, Max Kellerman. Yeah, he's never gonna live that down, and he just added to it. So now it's been 4 Super Bowls since that video came out. So good for Tom Brady, silencing the haters.
At that point, though, you got to lean into it, and every year you got to be like, "But this is the year," because like one year you'll finally call it, I guess.
I don't know, Bill. I think that Tom Brady's going to get 2 more Super Bowls before we get our own TV show here.
Well, we have a YouTube show.
Yeah, but that doesn't pay. We don't run any ads.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been secretly making a ton of money on this and just cutting you out of the loop. So sorry about that.
All right, well, let's get into the MMA talk before I start changing my mind here.
Yeah. Man, I can't believe we haven't done an episode since the Super Bowl. It feels like that was 9 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I part of me wanted to stay awake last night because you said you weren't available till like 10 p.m. and I was like, oh, maybe I could do it. And then I think right after the last text message I sent you, I was asleep at 8 p.m. And it's like, this is just the life of keeping up with a toddler, which is all the more reason I can't believe that Tom Brady's winning Super Bowls. He's 7 years older than me. It's just like your body reacts different to everything. Like I can't eat dairy anymore, Jeff. I had to take that out of my diet. I was having chronic lower back pain and I stopped eating dairy and it went away. And every now and then I'll have like some cheese or some ice cream or something. And the next day I'll wake up like crippled. So
yeah, Tom Brady stays away from the dairy.
Yeah, I mean, he's wise to do so. I mean, he stays away from the alcohol too, which is also something I don't do, which is probably taking years off my life as well, and the functionality of my body. But c'est la vie, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill. Nobody's depending on you to win a Super Bowl. I mean, you might as well enjoy life.
Yeah, I'm glad they're not. I don't think I can handle that pressure. Anyway, speaking of pressure, Kamaru Usman defeats Gilbert Burns in the 3rd round of the main event, UFC 258. Man, I am so impressed with Kamaru Usman, Jeff. You know I've been high on him for a long time, and I'll admit I wasn't the biggest fan of him when he first came to the UFC through the Ultimate Fighter. I was a little disappointed that he won the Ultimate Fighter. It was American Top Team versus what was then the Black Zillions. And I don't know, his style didn't really vibe with me, and it should, because, you know, he's a wrestler, I'm a wrestler, and, you know, I do like that smothering pressure style that he had, but you know, I guess for the same reason that Usman doesn't click with a lot of people. He just has like kind of an off-putting personality, but personally, I've come to like him. And I really love his fighting style, but that's not the most impressive thing about him, Jeff. The most impressive thing to me is his mental strength. I think mentally he's the best fighter you could think of. If you just look at his last his last 3 fights, Gilbert Burns' former teammate, he's able to put that aside. Didn't even touch gloves with him to start the fight. Knocks him out. And then before that, Jorge Masvidal on like days' notice. This guy who has the fastest knockout in UFC history goes in there, just mauls him, doesn't let him win a round. And then before that, Colby Covington, who Colby is like one of the masters of the head games right now. Getting Kamaru all riled up any way possible. And come fight night, Kamaru is like ice, man. He gets in there and he just goes to work. And that was probably his best performance against Colby Covington. But just the mental strength is amazing. And that's why, to me, Jeff, right now, Kamaru Usman is the best fighter on the UFC roster. And that's what does it for me. And especially because he still has his chip on his shoulder. He's still a competitor. He called out Jorge Masvidal because there were critics who said that Masvidal didn't get a full camp, and that's why he lost the fight. And Usman, that doesn't sit well with him, even though he dominated Masvidal for that entire fight. There was only one round where Masvidal was even in the fight. But Usman was like, people are giving him this excuse. I don't want him to have that excuse. I want to put him away. I want to fight that guy again. So just his attitude and his mental strength and the performances, the fact that he's been the champion for a while now and he just keeps getting better. For my money, he's the best fighter on the roster for all those reasons. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Bill, I think you're wrong in his best performance. It's hard to argue with you that he's the best fighter on the roster right now. I think his body of work speaks volumes. I think that if you put him in there against Khabib at the same weight class, I think he gives Khabib a run for his money, which would be an awesome fight. But I actually think I would give the odds to Usman in that one. One, because of the recency effect, and two, I feel like he just moves a lot better. There's something about his movement, Bill. He's able to get in and out really well. But, Bill, I think that Kamaru Usman's best performance was actually against Tyron Woodley. He completely shut him down. Like, Tyron Woodley, I think there were some 10-8 rounds in there. Like, Tyron Woodley couldn't get anything going. And maybe you could blame it on his rap career at the time. I don't know. Bill, personally, I think that Tyron Woodley is in the top 5 best rappers. I think it's Tyron.
He spits hot fire.
Yeah, exactly. But Bill, all joking aside, man, just absolutely dominated Tyron Woodley when it was, when the belt was on the line. And Bill, you know me, Bill. I'm a huge Tyron Woodley fan. I feel like he's one of the best welterweight champions. If Kamaru Usman doesn't win the title.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, Bill, I was telling you this on Saturday, man. I really like this angry Kamaru Usman. And I like that he's got a chip on his shoulder. Tom Brady's a little bit like that. I like that, as soon as the fight was over with Gilbert Burns, he went right into the camera and said, "Take what from who?" And Bill, I love it, man. We've talked about how cheesy Kamaru Usman can be, right? That one interview where he said, "That was me at 30%." Bill, I think that quote has aged really well because Kamaru Usman at 100% is turning out to be a really scary guy at welterweight, man.
Yeah, for sure. And that Woodley performance was really impressive, especially because Tyron Woodley was a changed fighter after that fight. That would go on to happen a couple more times to him at the hands of Colby Covington and Gilbert Burns. But the reason that the Colby fight was the most impressive to me is because he faced adversity. He showed different tools. He didn't wrestle Colby at all. And that was the first time we had seen that from him. They stood and were striking the entire time. He took some big shots from Covington. They both left a piece of themselves in the cage. He went and got the finish when he kind of needed it because it was a really close fight that could have gone either way, especially the way the judging was going that night because it was the Volkanovski-Holloway fight was the co-main event, I believe. So with those judges in there, You never know. So he got the finish when he really needed it. But the same thing with the Gilbert Burns fight. He fought through adversity in that first round. He got rocked. And for a guy who has wrestled as long as Kamaru Usman, even after getting rocked, usually you clip a wrestler like that and they're diving in on the legs or they're trying to get a body lock or push against the fence. He kept to the game plan even after getting rocked really bad in that first round. He still didn't go for the takedown. He shook the cobwebs off and he stuck to the game plan, which was to stand with Gilbert Burns, stick that jab in his face, switching stances and jabbing him in the face, controlling the distance, and eventually knocking him down with that jab. It was so impressive. And to see, the different tools out of the toolbox. I mean, GSP is the only other person I can think of who really weaponized that jab. Usually in MMA, it's just a range finder. It's just like, you're using it to get your distance and close the gap, or you're using it to throw from 30 feet away like Maycee Barber was doing in the co-main event.
Oh, man.
But, man, credit to Gilbert Burns, though. I love Gilbert Burns. I love watching him compete. I think he's going to learn a lot from this performance. He'll be back even better. I think he had in his head, like, he had to get Kamaru early, maybe rock him and drop him so he could, get him on the ground. From what he was saying, he's like, I've submitted Kamaru Usman from every angle possible. But MMA is not jiu-jitsu. So while they're rolling in the gym, it's a totally different thing than when they're actually fighting. And this isn't the first time where, we've seen two guys who were former sparring partners, former training partners, and one guy normally gets the better of it in the gym. We saw this with TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt was talking about how many times he knocked out Dillashaw in the gym, but, when the lights were shining the brightest, it was Dillashaw that got his hand raised, even though he was swollen full of EPO at the time. But
nope.
You're saying no?
No, that was one time, Bill. That happened one time for him to get to 125. Anything before that is valid. Everything before that is good.
Yeah, I guess on as far as the record goes, but even Garbrandt was saying, like, it was so funny because he put his foot in his mouth so bad. He was like, TJ was the one showing all the guys at Team Alpha Male how to take steroids. And it's like, oh, dude, you just throw your whole team under the bus.
Yeah, so their EPOs cancel each other out. So it was a fair fight, Bill. You got dropped fair and square.
Yeah, he's like, TJ's win over me shouldn't count. He's the one that showed me how to use a needle. I mean,
oh, man, dude, Cody Garbrandt, I think he needs to stop sparring so hard, man. He's only got like 3 brain cells left to rub together.
Jeez. Yeah, he's had a rough go of it. I heard him on the UFC Unfiltered podcast. He had like COVID, and then he had like some nasty staph infection.
Oh,
and he was getting like one thing after another, and like they couldn't figure it out. He's going to all these doctors, and he had like some gross staph infection in his knee. It was all swollen with pus and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about this welterweight division, because like, what do you do? Like, Usman wants to fight Masvidal. For me, okay. That'll be a nice payday for him. But to me, that fight wasn't competitive. I don't care if he had, a week to prepare or if he had, 19 weeks to prepare. So let's look down the line. I mean, he's beaten Covington. I would be a lot more interested in that rematch than I would the Masvidal rematch, just because the Covington fight was so close. Gilbert Burns was number 2. He beat him. Leon Edwards, number 3. He beat him. Masvidal's number 4. He beat him. You have to go all the way to number 5 to find a guy he didn't fight in Wonderboy Thompson. Then you got Michael Chiesa, number 6, still hasn't, beaten a strong enough competitor to fight for the title. And you got Woodley, he beat him. You got Maia, he beat him. You got to go outside of the top 10 to find, a handful of guys that Usman hasn't fought yet. So for me, the Covington rematch is really interesting because that fight was so competitive and such a fun fight. And I think it would go differently this time. I think you would see a little grappling from both guys, whereas last time it was pretty much a boxing match. And the Wonderboy fight is interesting as well, but I think Wonder Boy probably needs another win to get back to that title shot. And he definitely deserves it, man. He had those fights with Woodley, that were so close. I mean, the first one was a draw. That's as close as you can get to winning the championship, is a draw in a championship fight. So yeah, I don't know, man. What do you want to see next?
Bill, I would love to see that Wonder Boy fight, but like you said, I think Wonder Boy needs another win, and I also think that his style would not be good against Kamaru Usman. I think Kamaru Usman would smother him and use that clinch pressure where he just hangs on you and then starts eviscerating your ribs from your body. But I would like to see that Colby Covington rematch, because I'm a fan of both of them, Bill. I like the trash talk. I like that energy that they have between them. I think it's very entertaining. And Colby's been kind of quiet, for Colby Covington standards. I think that would be a really fun rematch. Like you said, their first fight was a lot of fun, really competitive, and their first fight reminded me a little bit of when Robbie Lawler fought what's that Canadian's name?
Rory McDonald.
Yes, Rory McDonald. Thank you. In how violent it was, and how it was very back and forth up until Kamaru Usman basically broke Colby Covington's jaw at the end. But man, what a good fight. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Run that back. Let's do that.
Yeah, same for me. And then maybe have Michael Chiesa fight Wonder Boy, and then the winner of that gets the title shot. There's a lot of interesting things. You could also do Wonder Boy versus Leon Edwards.
Nobody wants to see that, Bill.
Yeah, man. Like it sucks for Leon Edwards, because like it feels like the guy doesn't have one fan out there. Just nobody wants to see this guy get anything in the world. He was so impressive in his last fight. Out grappled Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, but then he hasn't fought, and then he was kind of blaming it on the pandemic. But at this point, they're like, well, other British fighters have fought, so Darren Till has fought, and so what's really going on here? Yeah, but welterweight is fun right now. You got Belal Muhammad is up in that top 15 now. He looked good the other night. All right, let's and then you got Gilbert Burns, of course, is going to be back too. So you have some fun fights there. You could have Gilbert and Colby would be fun. Gilbert and Masvidal would be fun.
Yeah.
Those are great fights. Or even Gilbert and Michael Chiesa, I think would be a fun fight.
Yeah.
Because Chiesa's got that good wrestling, but do you want to go to the ground with Gilbert Burns?
Yeah, that you bring up a good point. And Bill, while we're speaking about Gilbert Burns, you got to feel for him, man. Getting very emotional at the end of that fight. He was crying, and I felt for him just because he put in a lot of work to even get to that title shot. Had to be a murderer's row in this welterweight division, getting past Demian Maia, Tyron Woodley, and after that first round, I think that Gilbert Burns was preparing for a shorter fight, because like you said, he hurt Usman in that first round, and then he didn't follow up with it. I thought he was going to try and take it to the ground, which, when he got put on his back a few times, he tried to get Usman to get in his guard, and Usman was not having it. I was loving those kicks to the hams. Because you saw at one point in the second round, Gilbert Burns actually stood up after one of them. You knew he was not liking those. So good strategy from Usman, but a tough loss for Gilbert Burns here, man. And especially because in that third round, it stopped being competitive. It was all Usman in that jab.
Yeah, for sure. He ran away with it. Co-main event, Alexa Grasso looking really good against Maycee Barber, who is just shadow boxing on the other side of the cage. I mean, I don't want to shit on her too much, but like, I think she threw like 100 punches, like with being like a full person's distance away from Grasso. To me, I understand she changed camps from the Modafferi fight. I think it was too much too soon for her to fight Roxanne. And she was lucky that she fought someone like Roxanne who noticed that she had a leg injury and didn't attack the leg. Because if you're in there with somebody who's not so considerate, she's like, oh, this girl's young. I don't want to ruin the rest of her career. If you're in there with like someone much more vicious, they're going to be kicking the shit out of that leg, and you're probably going to have a lot more damage to it. So it was too much too soon for that. And then, she got Alexa Grasso at the wrong time, when she changed weight classes, and, she's looking really sharp at this weight class. Her grappling has gotten a lot better. And Maycee Barber is just another one of these people that like she rubs the fans the wrong way, because she came off as very arrogant when she was coming off the Contender Series, saying, I'm going to be the youngest champ in UFC history. Nobody's going to get in my way. I'm going to smoke all these girls. And, she was getting a lot of rub from the press, and a lot of people were hyping her up. It was too soon for her to fight Roxanne. And then after that knee injury, you could tell she wasn't doing a lot of hard sparring. That's why she didn't have her range. Maybe she was worried about injuring that knee, especially if she changed camps and she's training with new people. You don't, it takes a long time to build trust with your sparring partners to the point where you trust them not to injure you. So to me, it was an obvious issue where, she was rusty from not fighting for so long. She was fighting a little bit different because of the injury she received in the cage the last time. And, just couldn't get her timing, couldn't get her range, couldn't get her distance until the third round, where she really turned it up and started to give Grasso a hard time, but it was too little too late by that point. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I agree with you 100%. Maycee Barber absolutely was not ready for someone at the caliber of Roxanne Modafferi, who's been here. She's been here for a while, fought for a title a few times. This is not someone you want to be making your name off of, Mm-hmm. But she's lucky that it was Roxanne Modafferi, and she's, very considerate, because if it had been like Sijara Eubanks, I think she'd still be on the shelf.
Yeah.
Recovering and stuff. But yeah, Bill, great performance from Alexa Grasso here. Bill, her boxing looked pretty crisp. She's from Mexico. Listen, Mexico produces two great things: tortillas and boxers. Really impressed. And she even threw in some grappling there at the end of that second round. Had taken Maycee's back. I would have liked to see some better handwork to set up the choke, but really impressed with Alexa Grasso. I think she showed the development in the other areas of her game in addition to boxing. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty hard to miss Maycee Barber with that big old forehead she's got.
Yeah, man, you could project a drive-in movie on that thing.
Yeah, dude, it looks like an Easter Isle exile.
Yeah, but she's a talented fighter, and I think she'll be back. She just needs to face some lower level competition, like maybe even outside of the UFC for a little while. I would definitely take it that far. She needs to build up some more experience. She needs to get her legs back under her. And, for Alexa Grasso, she's looking fantastic in this flyweight division. So if this is where she makes her home, I would imagine the way she looked on Saturday, she's only a few fights away from possibly fighting for that title. Your boy, Kelvin Gastelum. Well, the other thing I wanted to mention was that Maycee Barber took the microphone away from Roxanne Modafferi, and like Roxanne is such a huge fan favorite that didn't sit well with a lot of people. So like she just like constantly like she's just a young kid who acts like a young kid and like constantly rub people the wrong way. But your boy Kelvin Gastelum getting a much needed win over Ian Heinisch. I mean, he's been in some great fights, but he's lost I think 3 in a row and hasn't had a win since 2018, I believe. So he definitely needed this one, and he fought like he needed it. I thought he looked fantastic. We saw, a hungry Kelvin Gastelum take it to a really game competitor in Ian Heinisch. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, man, I was loving the pressure from Kelvin Gastelum, using the grappling really well too. Bill, I didn't expect that performance from Kelvin Gastelum. I'll be honest with you. Just because take nothing away from him, I think he's a great fighter. But Ian Heinisch, man, he comes at you with this pressure and he's trying to take your head off, which I think Kelvin Gastelum realized early on, and got in his face and would not allow him to get his game plan going. So good win from Kelvin Gastelum. He was methodical. He didn't try to finish the fight, which I think was smart because Ian Heinisch, super tough guy. I don't think you're going to finish him. So it was nice to see Kelvin Gastelum go back to the grappling a little bit. Great job with the striking, but I was happy to see him go back to the grappling, which, that's what brought him to the dance. So a really good performance from Kelvin Gastelum. I think this will definitely help his confidence a little bit and hopefully set him up for a good string of wins in this middleweight division here.
Yeah, for sure. And the middleweight division is super competitive right now. Gastelum, with that performance, moved up to number 8 in the rankings, and I don't see Ian Heinisch listed at all in the rankings. But both, even though they both had tough goes of it, Heinisch dropping 3 of his last 4, and Gastelum not winning a fight since 2018, like they're still up there because this division is so competitive. Like everybody, loses fights because there's so many good fighters here. But we have some awesome fights coming up in this division. We got Costa and Whitaker, and then we got Darren Till and Marvin Vettori. Those are both awesome fights. And I would imagine, whoever is going to fight for the title next will depend on what Adesanya does, because if Adesanya stays at middleweight after fighting Jan Blachowicz in a couple of weeks, then I don't imagine that Whitaker or Costa are going to get the title shot. It would probably go to Till or Vettori, just for a little bit of parity, even though Vettori did fight Adesanya as well, but he fought into a split decision. It was a little bit closer. But if Adesanya decides to stay at light heavyweight, then they'll probably have, the winner of each of those fights fight for the vacant title. Any hopes and dreams for this middleweight division before we move on, Jeff?
No, I just want it to be exciting. And, the way you set that up, that's a really cool scenario. So I'm hoping that something similar to that plays out. I'd like it to not just be Adesanya dominating everybody, or I would like Adesanya to get some new competition. Hopefully be cool to see him and Kelvin Gastelum run it back after Gastelum can string together a couple of wins here as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Ricky Simón just putting that nasty pace on Brian Kelleher, and Simón, from what I understand, moved up in weight for this fight, but he fought another former bantamweight who was also moving up in weight. So not like the biggest test for him to dip his toes into the division, but he definitely looked impressive in there against Kelleher, cut him open with that nasty gash above his right eye, and it was in the worst spot you can get cut above the eye, because it was like next to the bridge of the nose where the blood just runs down your nose into your eye. If it's on the outside, usually the blood will run down your face a little bit, especially with the Vaseline. But great performance from Ricky Simón. What do you got on this one, Jeff?
Yeah, Bill, super impressed with Ricky Simón. Always brings that pressure, man, and a lot of people cannot deal with it. We saw Brian Kelleher was one of those people. And Bill, going back to the cut you mentioned, dude, that cut was early too. It came in like the first minute of the fight. I thought that maybe the doctor would stop it for a minute there because it looked like it was getting into the eye a little bit. Mm-hmm. But man, Brian Kelleher, just could not get going here. And Brian Kelleher is up there in years, which we've talked about this before. These fighters in the lighter weight classes, they do not age very well, just because of the output. But yeah, dude, Ricky Simón, tough task for anybody in any weight class. Just smothering Brian Kelleher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought up age, because I looked up Kelvin Gastelum's age. Do you know how old he is?
He's like my age. He's like 29.
Yeah, 29. I thought he'd be a little older, like into his 30s, just because I feel like he's been around for so long. But I guess he was young on The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, he won it at like 19 or 20.
Yeah, he's still coming into his prime, yep. which is kind of exciting, especially, seeing him in this middleweight division here. The comeback of the night had to be Julian Marquez against Maki Pitolo. Maki Pitolo was just piecing him up in those first couple rounds, just doing whatever he wanted. But you got to give credit to the corner of Julian Marquez there. Who's in his corner, Jeff?
Oh,
That's it. James Krause.
Yeah. I knew he referred to himself as and then I forgot what his actual name was.
Yeah, well, for the audio only listeners, they're not going to see that you spaced out there. It was just that you teed it up for me to give me the credit for remembering his name.
Yeah, you come in and spike it. We're good.
James Krause, great job in the corner there. Shot it to Julian Marquez straight in between rounds, and before the third round, he was like, dude, you need a finish here. So Marquez winds up getting an anaconda choke in that third round with like less than a minute to go, and he needed that to win the fight, and he went out there and did it, and then he asked Miley Cyrus to be his Valentine. So what do you think of the finish, and what do you think of that call out, Jeff?
So, going to the finish first, I was really impressed with fake Marquardt here, Bill. That's what I'm going to call him, because he looks like the wish version of Nate Marquardt, or like the Amazon's choice of Marquardt. But anyway, Bill, he was getting the tar kicked out of him. Pitolo was doing whatever he wanted. If he wanted to grapple, he was grappling. If he wanted to stand up, he was standing up. And it looked like every time Marquez would get a little something to maybe create some distance or reverse a finish, he would just get put on his reverse a takedown. He would just get put on his back. But yeah, dude, really, really good from the James Krause in his corner. And good for Marquez, man. He was able to ride out the storm a little bit, and then in that third round, locked up a guillotine, and then when they went to the ground, switched his grip to the anaconda. Looked a little bit like a Darce choke to me, but great finish for Marquez, and great job just staying in the fight and never mentally being out of it. And good job from James Krause. I feel like he is a far better cornerman than he is a fighter, so good for him. Oh, and sorry to cut you off, Bill. As for the call out, I mean, Miley Cyrus probably doesn't have time to watch UFC. She's too busy sticking her tongue out and being famous.
Well, she did respond to him.
Oh, really?
She tweeted and said, if you shave MC into your chest hair, then I'll be your Valentine. But then he blew it in his response, and he was like, but then you have to get a henna tattoo of Cuban Missile Crisis above your belly button. And it's like, come on, dude. It's Miley Cyrus. She's got 100 billion followers. She has more followers on Instagram than there are people on Earth. Like there's like dead people following her.
Oh yeah, dude. Bill, he ruined it. He had it. I mean, the chest hair will grow back.
Yeah. I was surprised to find out they're still the same age, because I remember Miley Cyrus is like Hannah Montana, so she's still young to me. And then Julian Marquez looks like he's 40. So, but he's not.
Nate Marquardt.
Yeah. Would you call him fake Marquardt?
Yeah. That should be the episode title right there.
Fake Marquardt. Yeah. All right. I haven't thought of anything better. So,
hold on, Bill. Before we move on, how old is Miley Cyrus? Because I thought she'd be like my age. I thought she was like 27 or.
Yeah, I think she is.
I don't know.
One of the most famous people on the planet. She's 28.
Wow. All that partying has made her not age well.
Yeah, well, her and I both. Yeah, I don't know. I still think of her as super young, because I remember my little brother used to watch Hannah Montana, so I remember on that. And then I remember when all of a sudden she came out with like this. She was like this super sex symbol and like one of the biggest stars on the planet. And I was like, wait a second, she was just a kid like yesterday.
Yeah, it was weird. Weird transition.
Anyway, Anthony Hernandez, man, one of the most impressive performances on his card. One of the most impressive performances of the year so far. A huge upset, I think, here, submitting Rodolfo Vieira, who for those who don't know, 7-time Abu Dhabi champion. Abu Dhabi, the biggest grappling tournament on earth. Like, whoever wins that is considered the best grappler in the world. For example, Gordon Ryan has won it the last few years, won the gold medal the last few years, widely considered to be the best grappler. Anthony Hernandez, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, I believe, gets a submission win. Not to take anything away from, submitting a jiu-jitsu legend like Rodolfo Vieira, but, Vieira gassed after that first round. He tried to go really hard for the takedown. He hasn't had that many MMA fights. I think only 7, or this might have been his 8th fight or something like that. My guess is he carries so much muscle. My guess is he fucked up with the weight cut. And then, was probably expecting to submit Hernandez. He was like, oh, this guy a purple belt, I submit the first round. But it didn't go that way. And like I said earlier, MMA is not jiu-jitsu. If this had been a straight grappling match where, Vieira could have pulled guard and they could have spent a little more time on the ground and there wasn't any striking involved, he probably would have submitted him. But, this is a fight, Jeff. So he exhausted himself in that first round, was able to take him down easily at first, got his back at one point. But, credit to Hernandez surviving those grappling exchanges with a world-class grappler and then getting the submission, man. People aren't going to remember the circumstances that Vieira gassed in the first round and that, maybe he had a bad weight cut because he carries so much muscle or whatever. On paper, Anthony Hernandez has a submission victory over one of the best submission grapplers to enter into MMA. And that's all it's going to matter at the end of the day. So big congratulations to him. That's a huge feather in his cap. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I was really impressed with Hernandez and a little surprised with Vieira, man. Like you said, he gassed after that first round. He had nothing left in the second round, which was weird because he was the one initiating the grappling exchanges. We don't see that very often. But, Hernandez able to take advantage and get that guillotine, the Armin guillotine, too. Bill, I'll be honest with you, it looked to me like he didn't have it very tight. I don't know if Vieira tapped to the choke. He might have just tapped out because he was exhausted. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, it was interesting because he did have, it wasn't only the arm in, but he had the arm across his body, which is kind of difficult to do. It does make it a little bit tighter, but it's also technically a little easier to get out of because you're already, you can cross back to the side that you need to be on to escape. But yeah, man, he was just he kind of fell down into that guillotine and was just like, no more. It didn't necessarily seem like it was the choke. He just wanted to be out of there. Because that's a scary feeling in an MMA fight. I've heard Chael Sonnen talk about this extensively. He's like, guys aren't afraid of the fight. They're afraid of getting tired in the fight. And being tired and not being able to defend yourself is a scary feeling. That's why cardio is so important. That's why a healthy weight cut is so important. So hopefully Vieira learned from this one and, he irons out those wrinkles for the next time he gets in there, because I would be excited to see him back. The guy is such a phenomenal grappler. So if he's able to tie up some of those loose ends. As far as Hernandez, man, this was great for him because, here you have a guy 27 years old coming off a loss to Kevin Holland where he got knocked out in 39 seconds. And then, he had been submitted in the past by Marcus Perez. So, he was, in all honesty, he was probably brought in to lose this fight. But winds up, submitting an Abu Dhabi world champion. That's huge. I'll breeze over the rest of the card here, Jeff. Belal Muhammad looked phenomenal against Dhiego Lima. He ate a couple of big calf kicks that really seemed to stifle him a little bit. They seemed to hurt him a lot, even though he covered it up really well. But the way you stifle someone who's really good at kicking is to pressure them and don't give them enough space to use their legs. And that's what Belal Muhammad did. He stayed in Dhiego Lima's face, didn't give him a chance to breathe. And he had even said, he's like, my game plan was to make him make him smell my breath or something through the whole fight. Just stay in his face, and it worked. Polyana Vieira, first round submission victory over Mallory Martin. And then we had Chris Gutierrez, unanimous decision over Andre Ewell. Pretty much just mauled him. And then Gabriel Green, unanimous decision over Philip Rowe. That was kind of a bummer because Philip is a local guy, trains in Orlando. So out of those 4 fights, Jeff, anything jumping off the page for you?
Yeah, definitely that Belal Muhammad Dhiego Lima fight, man. Muhammad able to change the game plan and, avoid the calf kicks and just using that relentless pressure, man. We talked about Belal Muhammad a lot. And part of the thing that makes him so exciting is he's like a pit bull, man, chomping at the bit. He'll be in your face. He'll put the pressure on. He's got really good cardio, which we talked about is super important. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, dude, Belal Muhammad making waves in this welterweight division, man. I think too many people are not paying attention to him.
Yeah, they're not remembering the name.
Exactly. This is him at 30%, Bill.
Yeah. I always thought, remember the name is an odd nickname.
Oh, that's his nickname? I didn't even know that.
No, that's his nickname. Belal, remember the name Muhammad.
Oh, man. I mean, I remember his name. I don't remember his nickname, though.
Yeah, it should be. They just got to change it now to remember the nickname. Yeah. So, fun card, UFC 258. I was struggling, man. I was struggling to stay awake for that one. I had a really long day. I was actually in a hotel watching it. I was had it on my laptop, and I was in bed while I was watching it, which didn't help my situation at all. But once that main event came on, I perked up, and that was an awesome fight. So good card. Worth the $65? Probably not. I don't imagine it's going to do big pay-per-view numbers. I haven't seen the numbers yet, but yeah, I think Usman deserves a big fight for the next fight. All right. Next week, Jeff. Excuse me. UFC Fight Night 185 at the Apex again. Heavyweight contenders Curtis Blaydes and Derrick Lewis. This is a really interesting fight to me, Jeff. Curtis Blaydes only losses both against Francis Ngannou, both kind of awkward circumstances. One of them was a cut. Another one was, possibly an early stoppage. Derrick Lewis, seems to have gotten himself in better shape. I saw a really interesting interview with Curtis Blaydes where he said, people want me to risk my win bonus to try and strike with this guy. He's like, I believe I can strike with him, but why would I risk over $100,000 that I could use to feed my family when I could just wrestle him? And I thought that was an interesting take. I thought it was some refreshing honesty. And he definitely can wrestle Derrick Lewis. Although we haven't seen that be the most successful strategy against Derrick Lewis because he's very hard to hold down, even for a wrestler the caliber of Curtis Blaydes, which are few and far between in the heavyweight division. But Derrick Lewis has zero technique on the ground, and he's never needed it. I remember his fight against Roy Nelson. Roy took him down. Top shelf Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt is Roy Nelson, and Roy couldn't hold him down. Derrick Lewis basically just bench pressed Roy Nelson off of him, all 300 pounds of him, and just stood up. And it was Roy couldn't hold him down. I believe Derrick Lewis won that decision, and I thought Roy should have won it just because he kept taking him down, and I thought he was, landing some big shots in that one. But the recipe to defeat Derrick Lewis is to, make him chase you around the cage, get in and out of the pocket, a lot like Volkov was doing to him, even though Volkov got knocked out at the end of the fight, and tiring him out that way, because he doesn't seem to get tired grappling, Jeff, because he kind of he has good takedown defense, but he kind of accepts the takedown sometimes and then just lays there and rests and then explodes up from the bottom when he wants to. But Lewis has gotten himself in good shape. He's worked out some of the back problems he's had in the past. He seems to have like refound his passion for the sport. It's an interesting stylistic matchup. Like obviously, Derrick Lewis hits a lot harder. He's got a lot more knockouts under his belt. But Curtis Blaydes is one of the best wrestlers in the division for sure. Give me your thoughts on this main event.
Yeah, dude, your classic grappler versus striker. And Bill, it's like you said, it's hard to hold down Derrick Lewis, man. But yeah, Derrick Lewis, his way to get out of takedowns, I guess you could, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a rope-a-dope for grappling. Like he'll stay there, as provided he's not in too much danger, and kind of just hang out, and then, like you said, just explode out of it. And Derrick Lewis has a lot of physical strength, man. But yeah, I'm really excited for this one. And Bill, did the first time they fight, was that on the GSP versus Michael Bisping card?
I can check. Have they fought before?
Oh, they haven't fought before? I'm sorry, I'm thinking of somebody else. It was definitely Curtis Blaydes' fight. I forgot who his opponent was.
No, they have not. They have not fought before.
Okay. I don't know why I thought they'd fought before for some reason, but I'm really excited for this matchup, Bill. Dude, like you said, Curtis Blaydes, is he a better wrestler? Yes. Can he hold down Derrick Lewis? Maybe. And I think that's the exciting part of it, because Curtis Blaydes, he's got some solid stand-up. He's been able to finish a couple of his, I think at least one of his last couple of fights with strikes, if I'm not mistaken. Don't fact check me on that, because I don't know, and I don't care that much. But the point is, Bill, Curtis Blaydes has the capacity to stand up with Derrick Lewis. Will that go well for him? Probably not. But dude, it's such an interesting matchup. There's so many X factors in this fight, and I think that's why I'm so excited for it, Bill.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth on this one. I couldn't pick a winner for you if you asked me to. So don't. World-class analysis here on MMA on the Rocks. Co-main event, Ketlen Vieira and Yana Kunitskaya. Really fun women's matchup there. They're both very technical, both quick. I think this will be a fun co-main event. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, Yana Kunitskaya coming down from the 145-pound division. So it looks like this is going to be a women's bantamweight fight. But yeah, I don't know too much about Vieira here, but Kunitskaya, she's well-rounded. She's a tough fighter. So I think there's going to be a really interesting co-main here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Vieira is very well-rounded. She's coming off a win against Ajara Eubanks. Her only loss was a knockout loss to Irene Aldana. But she's got wins over Kat Zingano, Sarah McMahon, Ashley Evans Smith.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so she's quietly, been climbing the rankings of this 135-pound division. She comes from Brazil. She's a solid grappler, 4 submission wins under her belt. Submitted Sarah McMahon, so there's that. Who's a great grappler in her own right. So this is a fun co-main event. I'll go over a couple of things that jump out to me on the rest of the card. Charles Rosa and Derek Minner. That's going to be a fun fight. Alexei Olenek and Chris Daukaus. This is a guy with 70 fights against a guy with 13 fights. This will be interesting. If they're really looking to build up Daukaus, they're really hoping that Olenek's ready to be let out to pasture, but I don't know if that's the case. I'm going to give you one of my 2 sleeper fights here, Jeff, and that's Phil Hawes against Nasruddin Imavov. Both of these guys 9-2. Hawes throws crazy bombs, ridiculous knockout power. in this 185-pound division. And Imavov, comes from France, very well-rounded, very good grappler. We haven't seen a lot of his grappling in the UFC so far because he's only had one fight. But I think this is going to be a fun one. I think it's going to be a really exciting fight. And I'll give you my other sleeper fight pick. That's Drakkar Klose and Luis Pena. I think that's going to be a really fun one. Two really well-rounded guys. Both have really solid striking. Drakkar Klose, good takedown defense. Luis Pena is really slick off of his back. He's got some tricky submissions. Always puts on an exciting fight. So those are my two sleeper picks. I'll give you the rest of the card, Jeff. Andrei Arlovski against the fairly newcomer Tom Aspinall, who's looked fantastic in the UFC so far. But every time they give these young lions to Andrei Arlovski, Jeff, he just surprises everybody and then, comes out and beats them. He's like the rookie killer. But Aspinall, I feel like, is the real deal, man. He's going to give Arlovski a lot of problems. Jared Gordon and Danny Chavez, Eddie Wineland and John Castaneda, Nate Landwehr and Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa, season 22 of The Ultimate Fighter. He was on Billy Quarantillo's season. Rafael Alves and Pat Sabatini, Shayna Dobson and Casey O'Neill, Chad Skelly, Jamal Emmers. This is a long card, Jeff. Ayman Zahabi, who is Faraz Zahabi's little brother. Versus Draco Rodriguez, and then Sergey Spivak against Jared Vanderea. So give me what's jumping off the page here, Jeff.
Bill, I'm liking this Jared Gordon versus Danny Chavez fight. Two well-rounded fighters, two young up-and-comers. And Bill, I'm really liking that Phil Hawes versus Nasruddin Imavov. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Bill, Phil Hawes, been doing some research on him. He's actually from my town in New Jersey. So, Bill, I got to keep an eye on this man and follow his career and hopefully see him in the middleweight title picture a little bit further down the line. But, Bill, this guy's got vicious power, dude. He is a scary man. So I'm really excited for that one. And I like the Alexei Olenek versus Chris Daukaus fight. I think that Alexei Olenek is not ready to be put out to pasture just yet. So Chris Daukaus has got quite a mountain to climb in this one. But overall, this card looks really exciting. And Bill, do we know when this card starts? Is it 6 o'clock on Saturday?
I am not sure on that one.
All right. This is looking like a lengthy card. The main card has 6 fights, and that always worries me when there are more than 5 fights on the main card.
Yeah, I wonder if they've been adding fights. Personally, I'm not looking forward to in a couple of weeks when we have like 3 title fights. I always hate those cards because those go to like 6 in the morning. And Philip Haw is interesting because he appeared on the UFC through the Contender Series, and he is the one who got knocked out via head kick by Julian Marquez, and that's how he broke into the UFC. Went out, collected a bunch of wins in Bellator and some other bigger promotions, and then came back to the Contender Series a second time and got a knockout in the first minute of the first round, and then had an 18-second knockout in his UFC debut. So yeah, that's going to be a really fun fight. I'm looking forward to this card. There's a lot of fun ones on here, but I'm wondering if they're adding more fights because there's been so many last minute cancellations due to COVID, which I don't mind. Jeff. If there's 10 fights and we lose 2 of them, I'm good.
Okay.
just let me go to bed earlier.
Yeah, man. Bill, speaking of 3 title fights, man, Bill, if you recall, in 2017 or 2018, I want to say, I went to GSP's last fight against Michael Bisping in Madison Square Garden, and there were 3 title fights. But Bill, I lucked out here because all 3 title fights were finishes. And Bill, you predicted that all 3 of those titles would change hands, and they did. I still remember that. But yeah, I lucked out because TJ Dillashaw won in like the second round. Rose Namajunas, she beat Joanna and Jacek in like the second round, and then GSP tapped out Bisping in the third. So it was an early night. So I lucked out, Bill. But I don't think that's going to happen a second time.
I hope it does.
I think we're going to get 15 rounds of absolute madness.
Man, 15 rounds. That's an hour. That's an hour and a half of just fighting right there. Not to mention all the fluff in between.
Oh yeah.
I'm becoming such a bitter old man, Jeff. I can feel it, and I'm just gonna submit to it. I'm just gonna lean into it. Real quick, just news wise, I wanted to touch briefly on the Gina Carano stuff. I hate getting like overly political and things like that. You know this, Jeff. And I have really good friends on both ends of the political spectrum. And I think all of those friends think that I align with them politically, and they would probably be surprised to find out where I do align as far as my politics are concerned, but it's not something I really discuss publicly. There's a few people who kind of know where I'm at, but leaving the politics out of it and just looking at what Gina said. So she made a tweet that was making a Holocaust comparison. Always a risky move when you're in the public eye. What she said, though, was that during the Holocaust, the neighbors of the Jewish people in Germany were turning on them because of the Nazi party, kind of convincing them that they were bad people because they were Jewish. And she kind of compared that to how she feels as a conservative. She feels like her neighbors are turning on her as well. And that was kind of misconstrued as an anti-Semitic statement. I don't think it was, although I'm not Jewish myself, so I can't say that it's not offensive. If people are offended, then you can't really tell them not to be. That's the way being offended works. At the same time, if Gina Carano feels like she's being attacked for her political stance, you can't really tell her that she's not being attacked for her political stance. I think it was kind of a clumsy way to get her point across. Definitely very risky. And in most circumstances, I don't think it's a fireable offense. It's something you should lose your job over when you say something like that. However, she works for Disney. And Disney is very strict about a lot of things. Like Disney park employees, for example, Jeff, can be fired for frowning. Like if they're not smiling all the time and they're caught by somebody, it's like, that's it, you're gone. So if you're going to walk that tightrope of making, very strong political statements and you work for Disney, that's a risk you take. So do I think it was that bad what she said? No, I think she was largely being attacked because she's had strong political statements in the past that kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And, this one just kind of took it a little bit too far. If you take it for what it was and take it in context and everything, I don't think it was that bad. But then, once the news outlets get a hold of it and start, marking her as an anti-Semite and like all these things, it's a risky thing to do. You can't make comparisons to something as serious as the Holocaust. So, I don't think it was unreasonable for her to be let go from her job at Disney. If you're going to work for a company like Disney, you kind of have to keep things like politics close to heart if it doesn't align with like the overall views of the company. It's a big risk to take. I think she'll be fine. I think she'll bounce back career wise. I haven't followed her career all that much since she left MMA. To be honest, Jeff, I don't watch the Star Wars stuff or anything she's been in. From what I understand, a lot of people enjoy her performances in that to the point where she was going to get her own spin-off on Disney Plus. So obviously that's all down the tubes, based on the things she chose to say. But I admire that she sticks to her guns. Like, she didn't backpedal. She didn't issue apology. She feels attacked for her beliefs, and she wants people to know that. And it meant losing her job, and she was okay with that. And I think she'll recover career wise. And I only bring this up, because of her place in MMA. She definitely was a pioneer of women's MMA, preceding Ronda Rousey. Really gave Chris Cyborg a tough fight back in Strikeforce. That was actually a really exciting fight that they had. If you've never seen it, I recommend going back and watching that. And she was a good fighter in her time in MMA, and brought a lot of attention to women's MMA, whether you want to accept that or not. I the only reason I brought it up is because I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, I can't believe we ever called Gina Carano a pioneer of MMA. It's like, well, she still was. Like, nothing that happens to her acting career can change that. Like, she did bring a lot of eyes to women's MMA, and you can't take that away from her. So that's why I bring it up, Jeff. Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, Bill. I don't know too much about it, but if it happened the way you explained it, I feel like Gina Carano didn't do too much wrong. Maybe her phrasing could have been a little bit better. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what people took offense with. But I'm also not sitting on the other side of the desk. I have some friends who are Jewish, but I don't know how they would feel about that. Especially because the one friend in particular who I'm really close with, because we used to work together, so we still keep in touch. But I know that she doesn't follow MMA and she's not a big Star Wars fan. So I guess I get her opinion on it. But Bill, my biggest issue here is how the news outlets tend to twist words. I'm not a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a fan of people who are like that, because I used to work for somebody like that, Bill, and it sucked. But yeah, Bill, I think that's foresight. No, hindsight. Hindsight is 2020. So me, Gina Carano, I love her. I don't watch The Mandalorian because I think Star Wars is lame. But and Bill, you know me, Bill. You know I'm a big nerd.
That might offend more people than what Gina Carano said.
Bill, you know me, man. I'm a big nerd. I play card games and video games, even though I'm almost 30. But like Star Wars and like Dungeons and Dragons are like the only parts of nerd culture that I will not venture into. Like that's too far. There's no coming back from that. All right, but yeah, man, I think Gina Carano just needs to realize, she works for Disney, and Disney's, anything that's going to make them look bad, they're not going to have it.
Yeah.
So, it's, I don't mean to sit on the fence here, but I think that, the media tends to leave out some details, which, that's my biggest, gripe here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they kind of took it and ran with it and made it seem like she said, oh, being a conservative is like being Jewish during the Holocaust. And that's really not the message she was saying. She was saying that, people who weren't Nazis were turning on their neighbors because of their religious beliefs. And that's the same as people turning on others because of their political beliefs. I saw the point that she was going for, but when I first read her tweet, I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And, I understand why Disney had to let her go. Like, they're under a lot of pressure from the media, and, they tend to lean towards the left. So, they had to go ahead and do that. And there's only room for one anti-Semite in Disney, and that's Walt Disney, Jeff. So they can't be having a bunch of people running around saying wild stuff like this.
Oh, absolutely. Bill, the saddest part is Disney Plus I don't want to cancel my membership with them because they have a lot of good shows that are not related to Star Wars. Because Star Wars is lame.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. I've never understood the fascination with Star Wars, and I have some really close friends that are really into Star Wars, and they've tried to like, I don't know, give me a different perspective on it. I'm just like, look, I don't get it. You know, I first saw the original movies when I think it was like 10 or 11. My dad sat me down and you know, we watched them on VHS, and he's like, "So what'd you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, those were pretty good movies." And then that was it. That was that was it. I watched when the next ones came out. I think I went and watched it was episode 1, which was the first one, but it was actually the 4th movie. I went and saw it in the movies, and I left thinking like, "Oh, it was a pretty good movie." I never watched it again.
Yep. And Bill, the saddest part is I've actually seen all the Star Wars movies with my friends, like all the new ones that Disney made, episodes like 7, 8, 9. I've seen all of them. Bill, I don't get how they connect to each other. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah,
I didn't enjoy them.
yeah. It's weird because like the first 3 movies are actually the middle 3 movies. And then the ones that came out after that are like the prequels, but they have like better weapons and it looks cooler.
Yeah,
It's like
they're like in the future, even though it's supposed to be the past.
yeah. I never understood that. I've had people try to explain it to me. I'm like, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far away. Why do they have flying cars and shit? Like, what?
Yeah.
And it never made sense to me.
Yeah, but anyway, Bill, this isn't a Star Wars podcast. This is an MMA on the Rocks podcast. And listen, Gina Carano is a pioneer of women's MMA. Listen, do not let the fact that they wanted her to put on a few pounds to be the Mandalorian or whoever she is in that show fool you, okay? Go back and watch her early fights.
She's the woman DeLorean, I think, Jeff.
Oh, I apologize. Bill, we just got canceled.
That's I think they can't cancel us, Jeff. But yeah, that's the only point I wanted to make too, is just to say like you can't take away her accomplishments in MMA, like no matter what she says or does from here on out. And yeah, I'm with you with the media. I hate how they twist things and stuff like that, and it happens in the MMA media as well, which is one of the great motivations I had for starting this podcast in the first place, because I don't want to sit back and say like, well, this guy does it wrong, and I don't like what this lady said over here. Instead, I can come on here once a week and talk to you and express my own opinions and do it my own way. And that's what we've been doing for the last 4+ years, and been having a great time doing it. So I'm glad we got this midweek episode in, and we're able to talk about Kamaru Usman's performance and a lot of the other fun things from UFC 258. If you guys do enjoy the show, especially after the semi-political conversation we had just now, and you still want to support the show, you can get your MMA on the Rocks merchandise through our friends at Team Reaper, reaper1.co. That's the number 1.co. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can get an MMA on the Rocks t-shirt, hoodie, or tank top, or you can get some other MMA apparel from them. They have MMA sparring gloves, jiu-jitsu gis. You can support some local fighters, which they're closing in on 100 fighters, I believe. And they actually just released a new St. Patrick's Day t-shirt where it says "Taking Shots," and they have fist imprints on your liver and on your kidney. I thought that was a fun one. Use the code MMA Rocks 10 to save yourself some money at your checkout. That's MMA ROCKS 10. And go visit our friends there and grab some cool MMA gear. And that's it. Anything else you want to get off your chest, Jeff?
Yeah, just before we go, everybody be safe if you're getting snow, which is basically the case if you don't live anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line. Be safe, and remember, don't waste your time on Star Wars. It's I'm sorry, it's not interesting.
All right, if you're a big Star Wars fan, make sure you reach out to Jeff at animal_Wilson. on Twitter and Instagram. You guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks everywhere else. That's all we got. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Cheers, everybody. Bye.